Welcome to the call. Welcome to the call, all millionaires. My name is Alma Nancy, and it is such an honor to be the host of this call this evening. Thank you all so very much for calling in, and I'd like to welcome all of you to this self-esteem development training call, Obsessed with Success. Just in case this is your first time calling in, I'd like to be the first person to inform you that we do have these calls each and every Wednesday, and they are always filled with strategies and tips on self-esteem development, entrepreneurship, as well as secrets of the super wealthy. Trust me, millionaires, you never, ever want to miss one of these calls because they can totally change your life the way that they have mine. And it's not just me. These calls have helped thousands of people throughout the United States of America. So it is with special excitement that I am pleased to introduce to the line Mr. Haziq Ali. Mr. Ali is the most selfless person that you would ever meet. He devotes all of his time to providing service and fights the war on poverty just so we all can win. It's because of this we affectionately call him the General. Mr. Ali is an author, a self-esteem development expert, my personal coach, my mentor, and my friend. Now let me step out of the way and introduce to the line Mr. Haziq Ali. Are you on the line, sir?
I'm here. Can you hear me, Miss Nancy?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Please take it away.
Okay, well, welcome to episode number 155, Millionaire. Believe it or not, next week is our 3-year anniversary. We're going to spend the whole call going over some of the most replayed episodes of all time. We're going to kind of go over what a bunch of the episodes were about, just kind of refresh your memory. We'll also be launching the website. I know some of y'all are like, yeah, right. But no, we're going to be launching a website. So you'll be seeing some countdown memes that we'll be putting out. When you see them, please feel free to repost them. Feel free to repost them. Like, we're counting down to launching the website, and we're counting down to the 3-year anniversary of Obsessed with Success. Stories, secrets, and mindset from all the best to ever do it. Our whole simple idea, our whole simple premise is that if we already knew everything we needed to know to have what we wanted to have, we'd be living the life of our dreams. Our whole premise is that either a mind has expanded to match your goals, or your goals will just start to shrink to match your mind. Our whole premise is that everything you see around you that is man-made, which represents ideas manifested, are just that, ideas manifested. They happen 3 different times. First, in the mind, second, on paper, and then third, in the execution. But since everything starts in the mind first, we call it millionaire-minded, right? And it's a lot of times, it's amazing because we don't even discuss money per se. A lot of times we discuss the mentality because everything starts right there between your ears. I was recently on a road trip with a bunch of my buddies and somebody's, who was it? I think it was one of my brother's friends, and it was kind of like on their iTunes, and it kind of got stuck there. And what we ended up doing, he fell asleep, and his playlist was so weird and eclectic, but some of the trippy stuff he was listening to, I noticed I really started thinking differently. I remember I came up with some really good ideas. We ended up letting it ride, but it got me thinking, right? Like, how would he have felt if all of a sudden I would have left him stuck with what I listened to? Or anybody else in the car, if we all would have switched playlists. Can you imagine if 95% of the songs on your player were downloaded from somebody else's playlist without you even knowing it, right? Like, you just wake up and it's a whole different world. What if the vast majority of these songs came from other people? How often would you luck up and they would match exactly the music that you want to hear or the music you want to create in life? Well, millionaires, there have been studies after studies after studies after studies about this exact subject. And the reason that we call this entrepreneurology is because of this whole idea that we want to study both the entrepreneur mindset, and then we also want to study the way the brain works. Well, this call is more about that latter. I don't know how many of you saw the flyer that we put out where we kind of talked about what creates your programming, what creates your conditioning, right? And then we listed all of these things. We said culture, family, education, religion, friends, media. There's a cellular biologist by the name of Bruce Lipton. He is amazing. And one of the things that he always talks about is how during the first 7 years of our lives, all the patterns that we're going to run in the rest of our life, all the beliefs, and this same thing is backed up by everybody from John Assaraf all the way to Brian Tracy, all the way to Deepak Chopra, all the way to any neuroscientist that you find. When we're in theta state, right, our whole imagination, our whole limits, our whole beliefs are all formed. But the beauty is you have the power to shift them, change them, rewrite them at any time. It's called neuroplasticity. So our whole idea that you can shift these programs so that you can become a more powerful sort of co-creator of your life is exactly why we're here this evening. Everybody used to think that your whole life was determined by your heredity, where there's a new science called epigenetics. Write that down. Epigenetics. It means above the genes. Epigenetics. That says, no, your life is a result of your participation and your mind's influence on what's going on. So this guy, Bruce Lipton, he worked on stem cell research way back in the 60s. And what his research sort of revealed is that it's environment that would shape what the cells would become. You could put identical cells in 3 different petri dishes, right? And just by changing the chemistry in that what they call culture, medium, that the cell is sitting in, you change the actual genetics and behavior of the cells. So, you know, for instance, want to become muscle, want to become tissue, want to become fat cells, right? Want to become bone. You got me, right? Basically, according to Bruce Lipton, the human is like this big, and I don't want to gross you out or get like too deep, but imagine if the human was like a giant skin-covered petri dish with 50 trillion cells. And at the culture medium in our body is the blood. Well, Millionaire is the chemist who controls the composition of the blood by adding and taking things away is our mind. The cells receive their info about whether to grow or die, whether to contract or whether to expand, all based on our mind's perception, our mind's interpretation of reality. Now, what's crazy about that is that everybody sees and perceives the world in a whole different way. We could both be watching the same sunset, but I might be looking out there saying, man, this is creepy. I don't know what was that sound right there? See what I'm saying? Why am I out here, right? Meanwhile, you're sitting right beside me like, man, this is amazing, right? This is a friendly, warm place. I love the sand. Oh, look at the little buggies, right? We're both in the same environment, but our liver cells are receiving totally different messages. This is affecting us to have totally different behaviors. And then this is affecting the genetic, the whole, on a biological level, the activity of our cells. And this is Bruce Lipton. This is a quote from Bruce Lipton. Whatever I am perceiving out there, I will manifest a physical complement to it in here. So if I have a healthy vision, my mind's chemistry converts my body into health. If I live in fear, and fear causes 90% of the illness on the planet, and it's all generated by the perceptions of the mind. The picture you hold in your mind creates the behavior and biology you express in life. So then, of course, millionaires, the next thing we got to think about then is who controls the mind. Well, you've heard this before if you've been here with us on Obsessed with Success, but we all know that the mind is divided into two main sort of sections. One is the conscious mind, and then the other is the subconscious. In other words, one is our awareness, the other is beneath awareness, below awareness. The conscious mind is all those surface thoughts and desires and wishes and aspirations you have, right? But the subconscious mind is where all the automatic magic happens, where it's just habitual, the stuff we do and we don't even know we're doing it, right? Right behind your forehead is what's called the prefrontal cortex. That's your consciousness. That's your identity versus everybody else's. This is your conscious mind. The other 90% of the brain was there before that part even evolved. All the lizard brain stuff, the hunger, the horny, the selfish, the scared. All of that's happening below your awareness, sub-awareness, subconsciousness, right? If we're driving down a highway and we're talking, well, the conscious mind is the one that's having a conversation, but the subconscious is the one that's driving, the one that's doing everything that's needed to put on the signal as it switches to the left lane and keep the speed below where the troopers are going to grab you, right? While your conscious mind is listening to this teleseminar, your subconscious is taking care of everything else. You're breathing, you're blinking, taking a sip from your Starbucks without burning yourself. When we're fully present and focused on what we're doing in a moment, the conscious mind is driving the bus. But as soon as we start thinking about something other than this moment right here, our subconscious kicks in and keeps everything safe. Now, here's what's wild. Scientists tell us that we're doing the last one I named, as in not even thinking about the moment we're in, 95% of the time. 95% of our waking life. And the programs that we're running are, some of them are empowering and positive, but most of it, I'm talking about the vast majority, is disempowering, self-sabotaging crap. Now, where did it come from? Well, again, family, culture, education, religion, media, and your friends. The first 7 years of your life, millionaire, from the last trimester of pregnancy all the way to age somewhere between 5 and 7, we're mostly in theta brainwave speed. That's the vibration that your brain is mostly in. The reason we do affirmation early in the morning is because of this, right? Another word for that is hypnosis. That theta wave is the most receptive kind of like pattern that we can be in to be able to absorb. And that's all we're doing in our early years of life. We're nothing but a sponge. Our model of the world is formed. How we're going to experience reality is formed way before we could do anything about it. That's why we're here right now. We learn subconsciously how to act when we're happy, or subconsciously how to act when we're angry, what it takes to make money. We learn subconsciously how to best express love, when it's safe to laugh, when you can sing, should you dance, when you shouldn't. We take it all from our surroundings, and then it becomes this automatic, under the surface playlist. You're just constantly dancing to it and don't even hear it. Now, a lot of times as we grow in age and we continue to form these new patterns, think of any skill you've mastered. There's something at your job that you're really good at, or there's something that you can do. If you play video games, you've just mastered it. Now, you can still master things as you continue to get older. Again, that's that term I wanted you to write down, neuroplasticity. But most of it is set when we were young. And if you want to know what you've been running all of this time, the best way to do it is look at your life. Because, again, 95% of the time you're running these programs, and your life is just a printout of that. The things you have in your life that you love are because you have a program that allows you to accept that. Anything that you kind of dislike or you got to work hard at, that you got to struggle, put a lot of effort into, it feels real difficult, it's because your programs don't support this particular thing in your life, right? Your conditioning is wrong. I'm giving you all of this so that you understand what we're about to get into. The effort and the struggle you feel is you trying to override a program. You're working hard because you want it, but that undercurrent, that belief you have, says it ain't going to happen. So how do we change it? How do we get to a space where we can take control of our own conditioning? How do we get to a space where we're strong enough to nullify, ignore, neutralize, dismiss all the commentary of people who don't understand that self-persuasion begets experience, right? Well, I'm going to give you like some really like sort of basic techniques. I'm going to give you some stuff to Google and study on your own. To me, this is one of the most important classes that we could ever have going into the new year. Here's the first one that you might want to look into. It's called hypnosis. Do you know that we can recreate our theta state whenever we want? That whole theta state of receptivity, right, where we're just a sponge? You know you can use that whenever you want, right? It's called hypnosis. And what's cool is that you naturally have that at 2 times during the day. Once when you're first waking up and you're drowsy, and then twice when you're going to sleep and you're drowsy. This is where the mind moves from that active beta state back into theta and then dropping into delta as you finally sleep, right? But that theta window, that's our most receptive state. That's where it's time to do your affirmations. That's where it's time for you to doodle and repeat your mantras. That's where it's time for you to be listening to something, that'll just play into your subconscious mind. The second one, repetition. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but here's something really powerful about your control over your mind. The subconscious doesn't know the difference between what's imagined and what's real. So the second method for reprogramming our subconscious is to practice new thoughts, new actions, with emotion, with repetition. Just like you're learning a new skill or building a new muscle. This can't just be no sticky notes on the mirror, although all of that helps. You've got to feel it. That's why in the mornings, a lot of times, you'll hear us like, woo! Because you've got to experience it. Now, sometimes it's hard when we're experiencing the exact opposite. Like some HIV patient just keeps saying, I am healthy. I get it. But even if it looks very different than your current life, repetition works wonders. It kicks the law of cause and effect into motion. Motion creates emotion. We'll talk about that more in a minute. But when you start weaving movement and feeling together, that's how you build the energy of a vision. The next one is high impact events. Every once in a while, something happens where it's like they call it a Jericho effect, where it'll just completely knock the wall down, pierce that bubble of our mind, right? Now, sometimes it's an apparent crisis, critical illness, loss of a loved one. You find yourself homeless. Maybe you get, some life or death situation happens. Sometimes it's a blessing, right? A blessing would be a high impact event. It doesn't have to be crisis. Maybe it's the birth of a new child or meeting a soulmate. Sometimes these impacts are so profound that they can just sort of quantum leap us into a whole just radical new vibe, right? A whole new vibration. We're completely away from our normal programs. Now, out of all of those, right, this next one is, to me, second to hypnosis. I won't even rank them, actually. But these 7 exercises that I'm about to give you are powerful because they all utilize your imagination. So these exercises that meld mind, body, and spirit are all gathered from different people, and it's going to do you no good if you just keep them there in your book, right? Les Brown is like, good things are supposed to happen to me. You know, and when you say it, the person around you, you know, they'll be like, okay, right? Or they're like, I hope so, but that's hope, not faith. Good things are supposed to happen to me because I asked, in spite of how I didn't ask, because I worked for it, even when I didn't. The whole idea here is that your experience will be a good thing after another good thing after another good thing after another good thing after another good thing, to the astonishment of a bunch of people around you, just because your experience is going to correspond to the images you hold in your mind. The tone, the tenor of the way you talk to yourself. If money self-talk feels good between your ears, good things are going to happen. Whether it's relatively modest or relatively massive is all up to you and your expectations. If you really take time to think about it, you've always met your expectations. The more certain you are that good things happen, doesn't it always seem to happen? So let's run through these 7 exercises, because these all have to do with the idea that you're in control here. Here's the first one. Millionaires, you've got to be willing to neutralize, nullify, ignore, and negate the negative suggestions of others. On my Instagram, I've got this little clip of Jay-Z talking about this uncle of his, and he's always talking about him, like how this uncle really helped to shape him because he just didn't believe he would make it. You know, he tells a story about like how his uncle just flat out told him, you're not going to make it. Nobody from around here makes it. Well, Jay-Z had to be willing to neutralize, nullify, ignore, and negate that negative suggestion. So the exercise that you want to have right here, because you got to understand, you're talking to these people and they start talking about their bad luck. You know, what you going to do? Oh, that's how life is, I guess. See, they're seeping that crap into your subconscious. States of mind are contagious. Andrew Carnegie talked about how he would prefer to have one person with enthusiasm go through his factory because it would set everybody else on fire, rather than having one person that had that negative vibe, because that would just ruin the whole bunch. One bad apple will spoil the whole bunch. Well, that's sort of how it's got to be with you. So with this exercise, I want you to practice using a huge ignore button. Pretend that this person's on the desktop of your computer or your laptop. Use an ignore button where when they start talking about how that's how life is, I guess, and oh, man, it's hard out here, imagine you're pushing the ignore button and just nullifying, neutralizing, completely negating their weak-minded response. Now, it's going to be a little bit tricky at first, because certain of these people are your friends. Certain of these people are your family. That's not to say they will be in the future, but right now they still have access to your subconscious because you love and respect and trust them. It's going to be an exercise at first, but eventually it will become habit. This little mental exercise of imagining the ignore button above their head is just a way for you to use your imagination to help. But the minute you push this button with that imaginary mouse in your head, they are in a bubble. You can hear nothing they say, and nothing they say even matters. You have neutralized them. Let's move on. Number 2. Get ready in small ways. Belief always shows up in behavior, doesn't it? Expectation always shows up in behavior. Write that down. So if you're going to, we talked about this on Affirmation Nation a couple of days ago, but if you're praying for rain, then grab an umbrella. What can you do to display what you believe? It's all about expression of faith. If you want that new house, start packing. If you want a wealthy life, open a bank account. Start the bank account. Start depositing. Suppose you want to head up a large organization, and you see the leader of that organization has a certain lapel pin that he wears or a certain briefcase. Well, get that briefcase. Get that lapel pin. Now, small caveat, right? This is like get ready in small ways. This is not about you doing things that are ignorant with your money or doing things to be something you aren't, and then you end up losing what you got. No, this is about demonstrating your faith. This is about if you want that new car, start shopping for the car. How much does the insurance cost? Maybe buy a key ring that matches with that car. Do small things that demonstrate your faith. This is you reconditioning your mind. Here's a third way. Since we're talking about reconditioning your mind for success, this one comes from Robert Kiyosaki. You got to learn about money management. That's number 3. I'm going to give you Kiyosaki's technique in a minute, but who knows that? It's a basic biblical creed, right? Where it's like to whoever has, more shall be given, and to whoever doesn't have, they're going to take whatever you got, right? That's Mark 4:25. 4:25. Like look it up for yourself. If you want more, manage what you have wisely. The best stewards get the most. You would do the same thing. A lot of people will say to themselves, though, that I'm going to give money first, then I'm going to learn how to manage it. Well, that's a great way to get a small fortune when you started with a large one. T. Harv Eker always talks about how the wealthy make their money work hard for them versus the poor work hard for their money. So here's an exercise that I got from Kiyosaki. I think you're going to enjoy this. It might seem a little bit over the top, but just bear with me because you can't be cool and be rich. What I mean by that is if everything that it took to become super wealthy was right here in your comfort zone, you would be super wealthy because God knows you're there in your comfort zone, right? So sometimes we got to take our cool off when we want to move to the next level. So here's the exercise for number 3. The exercise for number 3 is imagine that all your dollars are lined up in this grand foyer, this grand hall of your mansion. Literally imagine your dollars lined up. We're talking about reconditioning our minds, right? Watch where this is going. Line your dollars up in the grand hall of your mansion. And now you're issuing commands to what you want from it. Like you want it to work hard and be happy about it while you're gone for the day. You want your money to work harder for you than you work to get it in the first place, don't you? And you're picturing your money as happy to do it. They want nothing more than to serve you because you're aware that money is a wonderful servant, but a horrible, terrible master, right? You ever talk to a wealthy person? I remember I was now you know this was a while ago, but I was talking to a guy and he was obviously wealthy. I only needed like $500 for this idea that I had, and he was just putting me through heck. Now I was only about 13 years old or something like that, but he was putting me through heck. Have you ever been through that? You ever had a family member or a friend or a business associate even, and you know that what you're talking about is a paltry sum compared to what they have, and it's like we'll still ask you all these questions, or they'll still ask us all these questions where it's just based around, well, what are you gonna? When am I gonna? How and what and where and right? It hit me when I was a youth. This is how they got that way. This is how they think. So, when you're using this exercise, the important point here is that you're preparing your mind for large amounts of money by taking care of what you have. If you begin to look at the money and animate it in your mind, like these are your soldiers, like you're lining them up in the hall to go and retrieve more prisoners of war, You're not just going to give it away like it doesn't matter. You're going to start looking at, well, what is my ROI looking like? What's more, when you're talking to somebody, you're already going to have that in your mind because it's going to make you more powerful when you're negotiating. What kind of ROI are they expecting? What kind of ROI can I suggest to make this a win-win situation? But you treat money. Don't be one of these people that walk around saying, I don't care about money. This is a relationship. If you told your any other significant other, because money's just one more significant other, and if you told any other significant other in your life that you don't care, you don't need them, how long do you think they're going to stay around? Number four, with these 7 exercises, for these are the techniques I promised. Number 4, reimagine the past. Reimagine the past. This actually comes from T. Harv Eker, right? Where basically, let's say something real jacked up happened to you in the past 24 hours, 48 hours, whatever. Do you know that it's possible for you to recover and even prosper by you taking control of your memory of the event? Say you lost a deal or you said something and really blew it, right? That's me. Let's just say that happened to you, right? Or say somebody quit your business or quit, when you were managing them at your place of work. Well, there are 2 things that you got to put in place before this technique will even work for you. 1, you got to give yourself permission to feel okay about what's happened. You can't cry over spilled milk. And the price of greatness is 100% responsibility for your own thoughts. Winston Churchill said that, right? Your whole idea is that you've got to give yourself permission to feel okay. The second one is that you have to believe in the power of your millionaire mind. Instead of just deciding that you're some passenger, you've got to go ahead and choose to believe you're the pilot here. That God made you in his own image, right? So here's how the technique works after you've given yourself those 2. Go back to the exact incident that blew your vibe. And this time, instead of saying the wrong thing and realizing it right after you said it, imagine that you said the exact perfect thing. Everybody laughed. You're going to feel yourself smiling as this happens. You're going to feel your face kind of like beaming, like you're going to feel yourself blushing when you do it the right way. And what you're doing is you're reprogramming the emotional vibration that you feel from that. That's why I started off talking about the cellular biology and the fact that this is like genetics. This is a higher function than just your emotions and how you feel about a certain thing. You are controlling what you are attracting. So we've got to be intentional about it. So when you reimagine the past, imagine that the best possible scenario just now happened. That's not to say that you can't still learn from what happened. No, it's quite the contrary. What we're saying is that you're going to take what you learned from it and literally insert it into that incident, insert it into that experience. So the next time anything close, anything that even resembles it pops up again, your muscle memory takes over. It's going to blow your mind how that part works. So an exercise for this one is that you imagine sort of like, again, if we go back to that desktop here in this subconscious portion of your mind, imagine that there, well, really this would be the conscious portion of your mind. Imagine that there's a redo button. Don't you know that button that looks almost like the recycle button? But when you're doing Photoshop or you're doing anything, you can push redo and it'll take away the thing that you just now added to the project. Imagine a redo button. This is pictographic language which will like they say, a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? It's going to help you communicate that you are changing the emotional resonance. And therefore, logically, it's perfectly cool to feel the sense that good things are going to keep on happening because you reimagine the past. You've let go of it. You're living in your own reality distortion field. It's so funny. This rapper named Lil Wayne was just now getting clowned all over social media because of the fact that he said some real bizarre comments about the Black Lives Matters movement. And as usual, I was the only one that had this dissenting opinion because no matter how ignorant he sounded, what he was demonstrating was a reality distortion field. Now, no matter how selfish you may consider it, no matter how unaware you may consider him, no matter how much of a buffoon you would now sort of like look at him as, he went on some news program and he was talking about he's never experienced racism. And his basic thing was that, man, as long as my children are good and as long as well, guess what? I kind of, I know darn well racism exists, but I get where he may have been coming from. Now, I could be giving him too much credit. I've been known to do that sometimes, give people too, right? But I'm just saying, this is your brain. And sometimes some of my conscious, cool friends make my timeline worse than the news. I don't want to see that crap all day. So I know that's a little bit off the subject, but what I'm saying is that we've got the power to change the emotional resonance just by revising history, revisionist history. Just decide it didn't happen, baby, and it didn't. He's just decided he's never experienced racism. Guess what's going to happen to him in certain of these other communities? I mean, there are people that are going to love that. Now, there are certain people that don't give a darn what you can say you don't believe in the rain all you want, you will get pneumonia. But I hope I'm making sense when I say for him and his present moment, because that's all there is the present moment. There is no past, there is no future. All there is the present. I mean, if we're looking at it literally, right? These are concepts we use to describe things, but what is there? What is there? You are a human being. You are a human becoming, and it's happening now. So that's all there is. So you get to choose what you're feeling now. All right. So again, that exercise is using a pictographic language. Where this time you're using pictographic language to imagine a redo button. So if something jacked up happens, you'll refer back to this exercise and you'll redo it in your mind so that you feel the good feelings and think the happy thoughts that keep your cells operating in a healthy way. Stress kills, millionaire, especially distress. All right, number 5, live in the future moment of success. Live in it. Live in the future moment of success. Now, Dr. Maxwell Maltz has this technique that we always kind of teach called theater of the mind, right? If you're familiar with Dr. Maxwell Maltz, he's the writer of Psycho-Cybernetics, which is a phenomenal book about mental power and all of these faculties that are available to us. Well, the theater of the mind technique is where you literally imagine the seats, you imagine your drink holder, you see the screen, the curtain is opening up, and there is a scene from your life. You're supposed to live in it. I mean, you are planting the seed. You're seeing the moment in detail. The seed has to ripen. It will be a fact of your experience in the mind before it becomes a fact of your experience out here in the physical plane, right? Powerful, super useful technique, but it's not what we're talking about right now. What we're talking about is living in the future moment of success. Yes, the theater of the mind is definitely another way to recondition with repetition, But what we're talking about is the idea that sometimes when people get done with their affirmations or their visualizations, they say things immediately that contradict it. Well, you can't contradict a mental movie. So I definitely suggest you Google theater of the mind, but what we're talking about right here is that when you're driving your car, drive the car you really want. Picture yourself being in it. Drive your car. Don't drive your car. Drive your car. When you walk into your living room, see your living room, the one that you, right? If you go to We Are Millionaire Minded, it's just like vision board image after vision board image. You got to pick one out. We've got a couple awesome things coming for the holidays that you're going to love. Man, pick one out. Pick out an image that you love. Here's my point. Every time you hold a thought in your mind for 17 seconds or longer, it begins to manifest. They've proven this. This is what's called quantum physics. The ancients knew this, and this is why we call, because this is like a prayer. This is why they call those two soft spots on the side of your head your temples. The more you live in the moment, the quicker you are pulling it into your life. It has to happen. Number 6. Imagine the congratulations in advance. Imagine the congratulations in advance. So number 5, the exercise was to imagine yourself already in the moment. Well, then there's the aftermath of that moment, isn't there? There's that aftermath. We've all got people in our life that really, really love us. And when you make this goal happen, they're going to be, woo, right? Well, what's that going to sound like? Are they going to shake your hand? Imagine the hug. Is it going to be both? How are they going to say it? Some are even going to be astonished, right? They never thought you could do it. And when they come to you, man, they're going to try to be your friend. That's going to feel crazy. Imagine that. Whenever you start working on a goal, the exercise you want to do for this one, because we're winding up here, the exercise that you want to do for this one is go back to that desktop and imagine you've got a keyboard button with a lightning bolt on it. Now, you tap that with your imaginary mouse, and you're already imagining how they're going to respond when you pull this off. When you're working on your goal, whenever you feel yourself feeling either a little bit dejected or you just want to move up to level 10 real quick, imagine for a minute the congratulations and astonishment. And here's what's crazy about this, right? I am living proof. You will be shocked how the real-time experience mimics what you imagine. It'll blow your mind. I mean, it'll give you goosebumps. If you've ever heard of deja vu, this is all people trying to describe some of this weird phenomena. And that brings us to number 7. The 7th exercise is that you practice the physiology of success. Now, if you go back through the Obsessive Success archives, you will find that there's a whole training we did on body language, because body language is just that important. But this is about you, as Tony Robbins, this one comes from Tony Robbins, where he talks about how motion causes emotion. Sometimes you'll be walking around, for instance, and you know your attitude isn't where it should be. You know that you feel kind of funky, like you don't feel like, right? Well, pump your fist in the air. Or go in the mirror and put your hands on your hips in the Superman pose or the Wonder Woman pose, if you please. Millionaires, you cannot do those types of motions and still feel bad, because motion causes emotion. Let's just say you aren't feeling as successful as you wish you did, right? You're walking into this job interview, or you're walking into this first date, or you're walking into this one-on-one meeting with a prospect, and you don't feel very confident right now. You feel kind of like, weak. You feel weaker than you want to in the moment. Put a look of confidence on your face. Millionaire, decide to look like you can conquer the world, and you will be convinced it is impossible for you to have feelings of inadequacy and feelings of feeling like a victim and all of that while you're looking like a successful person. Your mind-body complex won't allow it. It's not how it's designed. what's going to happen, as a matter of fact, is you're going to start looking at these thoughts that were holding you hostage, and you're going to start feeling like they're inferior kind of thoughts. You're going to feel some kind of like weirdness about, what was I even tripping off? I'm the man. And it happens every single time. So millionaires, I hope those 7 techniques help. Really, I gave you way more than 7 because I know I gave you like some background and foundational stuff in the beginning. Make sure that you have joined Dear Millionaire. Send a text message at MillMind to the number 81010. That way when we send out the replay, you can get it. Or you can go to We Are Millionaire Minded on Facebook. We Are Millionaire Minded on Facebook. Many of you know that we have the Obsessed with Success jacket out now. You know, it has a quote. There's only a limited amount of them. I think they're already almost halfway sold out, and we just released it on Monday. But the jacket says, a tiger doesn't lose sleep over the opinions of sheep. And then, you know, it has the logo, Millionaire Minded and Obsessed with Success. If you want to see it, then you'll see it on the matter of fact, what I'll do is I'll send that out through Dear Millionaire as well. If you haven't joined Dear Millionaire, make sure you send a text message at MillMind to the number 81010. Make sure you like our page on Facebook, We Are Millionaire Minded, and then also make sure that you spread the word, because as you begin to study your notes, you're going to want other people to bounce the ideas off of, and that's what your study buddies are for. So make sure you take that part of your responsibility seriously. I love you all, and remember, either your mind has to expand to match your goals, or your goals will just start to shrink to match your mind. See you in the morning.